the legal case against Meta training their AI program Llama is absolutely wild. And if you are an author or somebody who has registered a copywritten work, which means you've been published with a mainstream publisher or self-published and then registered the actual copyright with the US Copyright Department, you might be entitled up to $150,000 per copywritten work that they used in the process of training their, I think it was a $60 billion AI program. And not only that, should we prevail against Meta, there's also OpenAI's version and all of the other LLMs, the AI programs that were training directly on stolen book data that could get you paid a tremendous amount of money. And in this video, I'm just going to talk about what I have discovered while reading through all of the legal proceedings, talking with 4 different lawyers, and sort of getting an understanding of exactly how all the pieces all fit together. This is, again, going to be sort of off the cuff, but I encourage everyone here to stay tuned to this channel. Look me up on Substack, because I'm going to be live blogging my lawsuit against them, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to tell you exactly how you can also do the same thing. Because what Meta has done, it might be like the new asbestos lawsuit. Like asbestos, you know, all these people got methaphyseloma because they were working with asbestos. And then there were just strings of lawsuits that have basically sued everyone who was ever associated with asbestos, collecting huge damages. And that may actually be what goes on with these lawsuits against Meta and all of these AI companies, because they made some egregious mistakes when they were putting together this program. So let's start at the beginning. Meta was designing Llama, which is their AI program, and in order to do that, they needed books. They needed long text books like these to get better results, because they felt like they were losing and they were falling behind in the AI war for the best AI program. So they initially went out to talk to publishers. They talked to HarperCollins. They talked to a couple other publishers. They talked to some publishers in Africa, just trying to get English language books and possibly other language books to throw into their AI, so their AI will generate longer and longer and more coherent response, because the language in books was considered high quality versus looking at sort of short form Reddit posts or things like. But when they went to HarperCollins and they went to these other people who had archives of books, they realized it was going to be a big pain in the butt to license everything, and it was going to cost them money. So according to their internal leaked documents, which are already come out in other court proceedings, they said that they would rather just pirate the materials. They even used the word pirate, and they talked about how this was probably illegal, and that they were exposing themselves to risk, and they directly sought authorization from Mark Zuckerberg himself. The fight against Meta is not a fight about utility of AI to digest content and then spit out answers. That is one legal case that may be argued in the future. But the basis on which you have a claim against Meta has really nothing to do with what AI ultimately did, which was steal your jobs and make the internet worse. What the complaint actually is that the way that Meta captured that information and downloaded it from an illegal software archive was in and of itself copyright infringement, just like downloading a movie off of Pirate Bay is also illegal, which entitles you directly to damages. And then that's where you get your damages. And then after that, then they did other shady stuff that created the technological LLMs that used your work in different ways. And that is a separate legal argument that we may or may not win, because I think there's some actually good philosophical questions that go along with that. However, they are still, even if it turns out that digesting books and spitting out AI answers to these books, even if that turns out to be legal, the way they acquired that material in the first place was clearly illegal. And that is where you're going to be able to seek your damages. And how does this work? So when recovering damages for copyright, The minimum is $350, and the maximum tends to be about $30,000 per infringed work that you had registered with the U.S. Copyright Office. It's not just an email that you wrote or a book you self-published and didn't register. It actually has to be registered with the government, which is something you spend like $60 for. And almost every mainstream book is like that. However, in the instance of willful infringement, which means that to read the definition, willful copyright infringement means the infringer knew their actions constituted infringement or acted with reckless disregard for the copyright holder's rights. If that bar is reached in a court proceeding, that means the penalties can potentially go up to $150,000 per infringed work. Okay, so I just looked at the database and the books that I have that definitely fit that criteria. I have 8 copyrights registered under my name, and when I look at these, I would think that 5 or 6 of these definitely fit that standard. Which means it's like $600,000, $800,000 due to me. My wife has a further 3 books, of which 2 were in the data sets that were shown. That's another $300,000 due her. So all in, Meta owes me, if they willfully infringed the copyright, $1 million. However, there's an argument to be that they could actually be more, because it wasn't only one database that they stole books from, a base called LibGen. It was actually many, many torrenting sites where they didn't only download books, but they also, this was dumb on their part, they uploaded books, because when you download something on BitTorrent, you leech. Leeching means downloading, and then you seed, which means you upload your pirated content, which gives you some like faster downloading capacities. Now, the insane thing about Meta's copyright infringement was that they, again, this is Meta. This is a giant internet company, and they could not handle the bandwidth that they were downloading. They had 6 computers running full time, and they couldn't get enough material offline fast enough at the largest internet company ever. It took them 3 months to download all the archives. It was on LibGen, it was on Anna's archive, and 2 or 3 different BitTorrenting sites that they were downloading material from, to the equivalent of 267 terabytes of pirated material. To put that in context, that is the entire Library of Congress 20 times over worth of material. Basically, everyone who has a copyright, probably who has ever registered a copyright, probably had their books in here, and Meta owes them money. And again, Meta had the option to directly license from publishers. They were looking for high quality books. They had the ability to do it, and they decided not to do it. They just stole it. They just stole it from all of us. And I want to say that I really want to get paid. Personally, I feel like Mark Zuckerberg has done bad things, and I want to get paid for the crime that he has done. But I also want to point out that this is a moment where, if you are a writer, if you are somebody who's out there who's been working your life in a creative industry, and you do not like the way that the government is going right now, this is a chance for you to directly impact one of the many oligarchs of society. And indeed, they pirated 7.5 million books when they were creating their generative AI. And should this be proven to be willful infringement, and all of those copyrights are then enforced at the maximum amount that the law affords, which is which is $150,000 each, the total liability that they are facing is $1.125 trillion, which is not the full value of Facebook, but it's enough to send them probably into bankruptcy, because that's a big bill. You should be able to access some of this if you act now. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about like how we go about suing Facebook. There are several types of actions that might come to mind. There's the word class action, there's just called like suing, and there's something called mass action. Now, class action is really for people, it's when you have an electric company and the electric company screws over 5 million people for $5 each. It just doesn't make sense to take on that claim, so you're able to group these people into a class and then all sue for that small bit of money. And that's how like the lawyers afford their fees to sort of hold these companies to task. Class action, although I have been advised by some lawyers that a class action might make sense, the truth is that if you're sitting on million or $500,000 worth of damages, it doesn't really make sense to be in the class of authors. Instead, it makes a lot more sense to engage in an individual lawsuit, you versus Meta, or in a group of 5 or 6 other writers all suing together, pooling resources, and trying to go directly against Meta. Now, there is a chance that a judge could group all of the disparate lawsuits out there into one sort of like huge lawsuit that all gets dealt with at one point. But you can still probably even waive your right to be in that and sue independently. And here's the thing that's so important. In a lawsuit against Meta, in a federal copyright case, you have the opportunity for a jury trial. And that is just the most beautiful thing that any one of us have ever heard, because a jury trial means that you get to sit in front of 12 people talking about how you as an author were wronged against Mark Zuckerberg, the least sympathetic, weirdo, fascist, Nazi promoter out there. And I say Nazi promoter, and the reason I'm saying that is because Mark Lemley, who was a lawyer for Mark Zuckerberg, it was reported in Bloomberg that Mark Lemley, who was trying to defend Meta against the lawsuits that are currently against him, he said that Zuckerberg's descent into toxic masculinity and neo-Nazi madness was the reason that he left the lawsuit and no longer represents Meta. So it's going to be a bunch of authors against Zuckerberg. There's a good chance that you're going to be able to convince those 7 people that you were wronged and that AI company should pay. So what I'm suggesting at the moment is I'm looking for a group of people to sue Meta with me, with a lawyer. Now, here's the interesting thing about lawyers, is that you could pay a lawyer the $700 an hour, or whatever lawyers cost, to try your case. That's one way to go. That's the traditional way. However, there's also, because this is in federal court, your lawyer fees could be paid by Meta if you prevail in the case. So that means you go to court, you win, and then Zuckerberg will pay your legal fees. This is another reason why they're not going to want to fight, because if the lawyer drives up a lot of legal fees and they have to pay those too, that's not only the damage, it's also the fees that they're paying. And the third way that lawyers can get paid is on contingency. The way this generally works is like the lawyer will collect a third of the proceeds that come in. They will take that as their fees for pursuing this case, and then the 2/3 goes to you. This is a pretty good deal at the end of the day. If you think about it, you're not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I don't have time to do all the legal work that goes into it. They file the case of the recovery. Let's say I get $1 million. They get $330,000. I walk away with $600,000, and Meta had to pay $1 million. And that's the important thing, that we are holding Meta to account. And that's just my claim. And then think about all of the other writers who get to claim it. This could be a mass movement. And I want you to think about how to do this. Now, I am going to be live blogging, live videoing, talking about my case against Meta here on like YouTube and Substack. I would love you to follow me I'm currently on Threads. I actually have a lot of traction on Threads, but Threads is controlled by Mark Zuckerberg. So that's probably not a great place for me to continue rabble-rousing against Zuckerberg. So go to Blue Sky, and I'm on Blue Sky, sgcarney.bluesky. You can find me on Blue Sky and on my Substack, where I will be probably writing much more cogent analysis of what is going on. So your action points for today are to go sign up for my Substack and the Blue Sky and look up how many works you have copywritten in the U.S. copyright government website, and you just type into like copyright.gov, go to search, register, like hit the research tab, and then put your name to see if your works were registered. Now, here are the things that are the most important part of looking at a registration. If your registrations are properly dated, which means you registered them within 3 months of your book coming out, that is how or before the book came out. If your registration is within that time period, that means bingo, you are potentially eligible for willful damages of $150,000 per infringement. So that's good. So look at that. Find out exactly how many actual records there are in your name. Copy that down. Screenshot that. And then find 4 other writers who you really like to work with them. And then you're going to go work with a lawyer. You're going to find a lawyer who will try this in case. There is a class action going on. I don't think the class action is appropriate for you if you are properly registered, but you'll find a lawyer who will take you on contingency or to collect the fees on the back end when they claim them from Mark Zuckerberg. There are lots of these lawyers out there, and if you follow me and you are a writer, I will attempt to connect you with the network of lawyers who have reached out to me, and we are going to get Zuckerberg. All right, guys, I am so excited for this. I will do a more detailed video, sort of better thought out, pretty soon. And in the meanwhile, remember, we're taking this fight to the oligarchs. From PokeyBear LLC in Denver, Colorado, this was Scott Carney, rabble rousing.